pretty sure I just got worked. I'm pretty sure myself and the entire audience just got worked. And I have to say, from an entertainment standpoint, from a directing standpoint, I am truly in awe of this movie and what it actually accomplished. Because, all right, listen, this is funny. This is really funny to me. When you set out to do a biopic on Tammy Faye Baker, I think you're dealing with a complicated topic, and that is, how do you make someone in this situation sympathetic? Now, from all accounts, from what little I've read and the little I know, I was not old enough to really understand the whole Jim and Tammy Faye Baker thing when it was happening. I remember hearing it, on late night talk shows and things like that my parents were watching, but I didn't understand any of it. And when you get older, you kind of hear about it in passing. It's history by that point. So I don't know everything, or barely anything, really, if I'm going to be honest. But from what I understand, Tammy Faye, at least in terms of her persona, was a fairly sympathetic person and not a terrible human being. She supported, most notably, she supported gay rights when the rest of the religious right were condemning them to hell. So I think, if nothing else, she deserves a little bit of sympathy for that. But there is always this thing with her and with her husband, is how much of what they showed you was genuine and how much was a work. For those who don't know the terminology I'm using, in wrestling language, a work is when something is planned. It's it's predetermined. This feud, this event, this was all work. All right? And people like Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, the televangelists, which have now, they were not so much the first of their kind, but definitely some of the most successful and some of the most trailblazing for their profession. Watching them, you just can't believe that this is real. These people are, clearly playing you. And as it turns out, yes, they were. So the question then becomes, you're going to do a biopic. How do you make a character like Tammy Faye Baker and Jim Baker sympathetic enough that you want to see their story? And the answer is by making it a work. It is a work from start to finish. It took me a little bit to kind of glom on to what they were doing, and then it suddenly hit me. The first part of this film, it is a comedy. It is a 100% comedy. Jim and Tammy Faye Baker are played as cartoon characters, even when they're not on camera. And they are always played as people who believe their words, they believe what's going on. And it is an absolute work. They are making you laugh at these people. So then towards the middle of the film, when shit starts to go wrong for them, and for Tammy Faye specifically, you start to feel for her because she's a cartoon character. It's like somebody being mean to, I'll just use the character that they use. It's like someone being mean to Betty Boop. How could you be so mean to Betty Boop? So this film plays them off as giant cartoon characters, always on, always in character. And when the bad stuff starts to happen, that's when little pieces of it start to get chipped away. The film that this reminds me of the most is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. It really does. with the overblown acting and the completely unrealistic way these two characters move through life, the acting is exactly like John C. Reilly in Walk Hard. The character would not be out of place there. And that's brilliant from a filmmaking point of view and from an acting point of view, because you are getting the audience on these people's sides. And what's even sadder, here's what's even sadder. As I was sitting in the theater and as I was listening to people leave, I don't think half the audience there realized it was a work. Because they are walking out singing the songs and, oh, she was so lovely. It's like, you don't realize you just got played. They are reenacting. This movie is reenacting the actual things that Jim and Tammy Faye Baker did. They got you to sympathize with these people, and therefore you leave after seeing the horrible things that they did and going, oh my God, weren't they wonderful? It's a fucking work. And it's brilliant. I have to say, I can't honestly say I loved this movie completely. But I gotta say, from a strictly directorial standpoint, this thing is a greater con job than Orson Welles' radio broadcast of War of the Worlds. It's right there. It is duping you from the start. And I have to give, I'm hoping that's what they intended. If it turns out that's not what they intended and they really were being serious, I'd be like, oh shit, really? Because it's the only plausible explanation for it. So yeah, it does a great job of getting you to sympathize with people you should not be sympathizing with. But let me even amend that a little bit, because I think what the film is trying to say is that despite the aura that they put on themselves, and despite the pardon the terminology, the holier than thou presentation, and we're doing everything for the greater good, we're doing everything for Christ, we're doing everything for this, that these are people, and they are people who have the capacity for sin and to fail. And and as we have seen countless times from the religious right, is that nobody has a harder time dealing with their own failures than them. They can't process it. So yeah, it's a movie that in a way I kind of feel like you need a shower after, because these people are televangelists and some of these 80s religious right folks who gave rise to folks like Donald Trump. I feel like I need a shower now. They are just the scuzziest human beings on the face of the earth. But yeah, I have to say, from a strictly storytelling standpoint, boy, this film really pulled you in and made you a willing participant in your own duping. So, kudos to that. I give big ups to that. The other quote that I think of sometimes when I was watching this movie is, especially when it was related to Tammy Faye, because that's who the movie is technically about, was a line from House where he was treating LL Cool J, who was playing a death row inmate, and in one scene he says, "What if your whole life was all about the worst thing you ever did?" And I kind of thought of that movie, or thought of that quote several times, just because, again, I'm trying to be fair here. Tammy Faye Baker did do some good things. They did do some good. If you're gonna acknowledge the bad, you got to acknowledge the good. And she did do so. Like I say, she stood up for gay rights when the rest of her ilk were, one of them burned at the stake. They did raise money for her, for people in need. So there was some good that came out of it. But now the question is, does the bad that they did and the lies that they told, does that overtake the good? Or was there ever any good, or was the good all a work? It raises some interesting questions, this picture, and questions that are like not the most comfortable to answer or think about, really. But that's what a good piece of film should do. I think I have to give some big ups to the performances in this movie. This is probably the best acting I've seen Andrew Garfield do since The Social Network. Honestly, I think, and again, he is playing Jim Baker like such an overgrown baby. Like seriously, he looks and acts like an overgrown toddler half the time. Also, several times he's shot in this film, and he looks I don't know if I need to start wearing my glasses more when I go to movies, but I swear the way he is photographed and the way his hair is done sometimes in this film, I swear he looks like James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That is not apropos of anything. It has no bearing on the film. Just there are certain shots I'm looking at, he looks exactly like Spike. But I do give him credit. He is overacting, and as you know, one of my great catchphrases, he's chewing the scenery and flossing with the props. You know, and he is just playing it to the hilt. And clearly he's having a good time doing it. So yeah. You know who doesn't get a lot of credit for their role in this film, and that is Vincent D'Onofrio as Jerry Falwell, one of the most repulsive human beings that ever walked the earth. And he does a really good job. What's funny with Vincent D'Onofrio is that for such a recognizable guy with such a kind of a big frame, it's amazing how much of a chameleon he is and how he looks different in almost every role. You know, it really is. You know, I didn't realize it was him at first. It took me a little while. But as with movies like this movie is here for one reason. There is one reason this is here, coming out this point in the year. This is Oscar bait. We are trying to snag an Oscar, and the person we are trying to snag an Oscar for is Jessica Chastain. That is who this film is hyping up. That is, I mean, when an actor does a heavy prosthetic like this and puts on an overly done character voice, that's what they're going for. They're going for an Oscar. It's plain as day. So the question, I guess, then, knowing that is the end goal, does she deserve the Oscar for this film? I'm gonna have to go with no on it. I think she's given better performances other places. What I will say, and again, when you're working with Jessica Chastain, there's only so much you can do, really. What I will say is it is by far her most, I don't know what the term, charismatic role? Her most, I guess the only term I can think of is cartoony role. Most of the roles I've seen her in, she is stoic. She's a lot calmer. She's a lot more in control. I'm thinking of, her roles in The Martian, Miss Sloane, that really good Molly's Game. I love that movie, and I was trying to think of its name. She's very controlled and very stoic in those films. And this one, she is just a cartoon character. And I must admit to being a bit surprised by that. Of just, man, I didn't know she had those tools in her toolbox. I really didn't. And I feel like it was nice to see her kind of play a different character than the one she normally plays. That being said, again, does she deserve the Oscar for this one? I think she deserved the Oscar more for Mrs. Sloane. I always keep saying Miss Sloane or Molly's Game. I thought those were her strongest performances. This one, again, it's an interesting role for her, and she definitely showcases her talent. But I don't know if I would consider it a Best Actor of the Year award, in my opinion. She does a lot with the makeup and the hair, and she really goes down. And this is another one you can really feel that she's having fun with the role. She's having fun playing this character. So then that definitely comes across. And I think that's very important for the film's overall thematic element, like I mentioned, that she and Andrew Garfield are really just having a ball playing these characters to the hilt, and then finding the dramatic thread in it towards the middle of the film. So I give them both credit for that. I think they're good performances, and they definitely fit the film. Oscar worthy, I don't think so, but that's me. That's my opinion. I don't know quite what else to say about this movie. Like I say, once you kind of realize what it is, and you realize that this movie is fucking with you, then it's a fun little film. But again, there are times when it's just hard to get into it because of the actual history, or what little of it I know, to be completely honest. But all in all, I think a very interesting way to tell this story, and actors having fun with their roles and able to sell it. So all in all, I think the film is successful, in my opinion. So I don't know quite what else to say about this one. Oh, I talked in the Suicide Squad review about music choices and how not Tim Gunn, god damn, I'm so bad with names, the director of the Suicide Squad, how he uses music a lot, and one of the complaints I had about that is that the music didn't have any purpose. I liked the choice of music in this because it always seemed to underline what was happening in the next montage. There's one where she's doing her very campy, religious disco, and she's singing about we're going to go higher and higher, and this is while she's, doped out of her gourd, and so underlining that it's a very clever song choices. I don't know if Jessica Chastain did her own singing in the film, and if so, I give her a lot of credit for that, because anyway, even though Tammy Faye Baker notoriously was not that great of a singer, but whatever. All in all, I think it was an okay film. I think it was enjoyable, a little too Oscar baity for me, but I do think it was a very interesting movie and a very interesting way to tackle this particular subject. So let's wrap it up here. So, final grade for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I am gonna go a B on this one. Solid B. Not a B plus, not a B minus. Again, I think it told its story well. The performers are having a great time and enjoying themselves, and it's a hell of a ride, and one that you need to make sure you're being taken on. Because it really captures that that used car salesman feel that they had back in the day. So yeah, solid B on this one. All right, so that's it for me this time. Thank you for coming along with me for the drive home, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies. Hey, sorry to jump back in here. I don't normally do this, but this is the problem when you do these kind of things and you don't script them and you're doing them right off the top of your head, is you tend to forget things. But I have to, I just remembered I had to talk about this. Probably my favorite character in this movie is Tammy Faye's mother, especially towards the beginning of the film till about the middle. Because remember how I said this movie was essentially Walk Hard? Well, her mother is Dewey's mother, or Dewey's father. Like that same disapproving look at everything, that sneer. I kept expecting her to come out with, the wrong kid died. I'm sorry, I had to come back and talk about that. It was just my favorite part of the movie, to be completely honest. Okay, so sorry about that. So that's my final word on this film. So once again, thanks for joining me for reals this time. As always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.